Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jill Greenwood. I'm the Eric and Jane Nord Family Curator of Education at the Allen, and it's my pleasure to see you all here today. My sincerest thanks to everyone who helped make this event possible, including our volunteer guild, but to guild members, staff, and everyone, thank you for being here and for your support. Now it's my pleasure to introduce both of our speakers today. So I'll start with Emily. Emily French joined the Allen in 2023 and is now the Interim Curator of Academic Programs. In this role, she is dedicated to making artworks accessible and engaging through teaching and programming for Oberlin College students. Emily earned her doctorate degree in Mediterranean archaeology at the University of Pennsylvania with research focused on concepts of space, geography, and mapping as illustrated in Roman floor mosaics. Emily has excavated at archaeological sites in Greece, Israel, and most recently in Italy, where she was a trench supervisor for the COSA excavations. I'm sure there are stories that go along with that. Prior to joining the Allen, Emily worked as a visiting assistant professor in the classics department at the University of Colorado Boulder, where she taught classes on Pompeii, Roman sculpture, and ancient Italian wall paintings. Marlise Brown is assistant curator of European and American art before 1900 at the Allen. Her research focuses on gender, theatricality, and self-fashioning in architecture and interrelated roles of labor and luxury in the 18th century decorative arts. Prior to joining the Allen, she co-curated an installation at the Metropolitan Museum of Art that reconsiders racialized porcelain figures in the museum's collection and the role of the decorative arts in negotiating issues of race, labor, colonialism, and global commerce in the 18th century. Previously, she taught global art and architectural history courses at Temple University, Jefferson University, and the Barnes Foundation. Her research and professional development have been supported by grants from the Getty Museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Fulbright Commission, as well as numerous other institutions. In 2024, Emily and Marlise paired together as the dynamic duo to reinstall the Allen's permanent collection of ancient art, the topic of today's talk. So please join me in welcoming Emily French and Marlise Brown to the lecture for rethinking the display of ancient Mediterranean and Western Asian art at the Allen.
Thank you, Jill, for the introduction and for inviting us to speak on the reinstallation. We will be presenting this work at the annual meeting of the Archaeological Institute of America in early January, so we're looking forward to your questions and your feedback. Thanks to everyone involved in organizing these events and the many people who helped with the reinstallation project. A special thank you to Michael and Andre for the incredible effort you put into making the gallery of our dream. So why did we reinstall the ancient art collection? As you may remember, this past summer, the museum was closed for the Sustainable Infrastructure Project, or SIP, which has the goal of moving the entire Oberlin campus onto geothermal energy. The museum already had this infrastructure, but we needed to be hooked into the campus-wide system. Work taking place on the north lawn and underneath the northern section of the museum that way necessitated the deinstallation of several galleries. This was a massive amount of work, but it also presented the great opportunity to reimagine these galleries, which had been the same for a long period, including the ambulatory of ancient art. And also you should go check out the Nord and Willard Newell galleries of European art that Marlise did an incredible job on. So the Allen has roughly 300 works in the ancient section. Though it's one of the smaller areas of the collection, the artworks are wide-ranging in date and in culture. They cover about 5,000 years from roughly 4,000 BCE to 1,000 CE and represent areas all around the Mediterranean Sea, inter-Western Asia, and if we add an artwork that we borrowed from the Asian collection, stretch into modern Pakistan. A very large number of these objects were gifted to the museum. They come from various donors, including the College Classics Department and Charles and Abigail Olney, who gave hundreds of works to the college in 1904. The collection falls under the purview of the Curator of European and American Art, and there has never been a curator with a specialty in this area. The art history department has also been without an ancient specialist for some years. And as a result, there's plenty of research and work to do on the collection. One aspect of the collection that we wanted to highlight in the new gallery came from the kind of layers of this history, namely the fact that we are missing crucial contextual information for a number of the objects. We did want to highlight works for which we do know the find spot. So Stacy created a map for us that does the double duty of both showcasing a selection of those objects, as well as framing the wide span of the collection. And the text, which in case you don't have time to read it, you can check out in the gallery, notes that much other information is lacking and that there's more work to be done. We might also mention that there are no plans to collect further in this area. The museum follows the 1970 UNESCO Convention on Cultural Property, which sought to stop the illegal trade of objects of cultural property, including antiquities. The convention marks an important boundary for many institutions. If there is not clear documentation of the object being removed from its country of origin before 1970, it cannot be purchased or accepted as a gift or bequest. You might notice in this presentation some accession numbers that are much more recent than 1970, but for most of these, they had been in the museum for some time before they were formally accessioned, so don't count. Looting remains an issue in many parts of the world, and so we're glad that the Allen follows best practices in this regard. Previous galleries of ancient art at the Allen, most recent installed in around 2011, presented the works grouped by culture, with Near Eastern, Egyptian, and Greek and Roman objects in the same areas. Wall text describes some of the objects on view, the collections more broadly, and named important gifts and donors. Only a few large sculptures received individual labels. This arrangement has its benefits, but can also reinforce a linear understanding of ancient history, so we're excited to take things in a new direction.
Given the modest size of the Allen's collection of ancient Mediterranean and Western Asian art, it did not make sense to retain the limitations of the previous display. Furthermore, after meeting with various Oberlin College professors and colleagues at the museum, we found that this was not how people engaged and taught with the ancient collection anyway. For the reinstallation, Emily and I wanted to group artworks together around several themes that helped the public understand the underlying human component of ancient art, architecture, and artifacts. We grouped the art collection according to three major themes: objects of daily life, religion, worship, death, and burial, and polychromy in ancient sculpture. Emily and I were aware that a thematic arrangement of ancient art, as opposed to a chronological or a geographical arrangement, could be very controversial. Traditionally, most large public-facing museums and institutions with encyclopedic ancient collections favor a traditional chronological and geographical approach. However, because the Allen has a smaller collection of ancient objects and the museum is situated on the campus of a small liberal arts college that promotes curiosity, inquiry, and connection, we felt encouraged to pursue a thematic arrangement in this gallery that would honor and amplify new perspectives. In four major sections of the ancient ambulatory, we guide visitors with large-scale didactics, which include thematic, final text, and a map. As Emily mentioned, the previous installation provided minimal interpretation, making it difficult for viewers who are not part of a guided tour at the Allen or here for a class visit to actually engage with the collection on a deeper level. Creating more didactic content that was accessible, engaging, and focused was essential for our reinstallation. In the daily life section, we grouped objects that served various commonplace functions together. The ornamentation and materials used to construct everyday objects like vessels, jewelry, currency, and oil lamps can tell us a lot about the original owner's socioeconomic status, their political allegiances, religious practices, professions, and culture. Ceramic and glass vessels, for example, were more affordable for larger segments of the population than something like the Cypriot gold necklace displayed in the gallery. Some objects may have been used more frequently by specific genders or age groups. For example, the strigil was used by both men and women in bathing contexts to scrape dust and oil off the skin. But it was most prominently used by male athletes. In antiquity, as is the case today, styles of dress and adornment and home decor held significant meaning in social and cultural contexts. The various depictions of humans in the collection provide insights into trends in body hair, which can be culturally specific and change over time. The second section showcases the Allen's collection of polychromatic sculpture and architectural fragments, a topic that has received increasing scholarly attention at several groundbreaking exhibitions at the Met, the Fine Arts Museum of San Francisco, and the J. Paul Getty Museum. Ancient Mediterranean sculpture and architecture were often formed in stone and metal and enhanced with polychromy, meaning many colors in Greek. Artists embellished most sculptures with lifelike painted features, skin, garments, and jewelry. Municipal buildings, homes, businesses, and temples were also covered with colorful painted patterns. Artists further embellished their work with inlaid gold, silver, and multicolored precious stones. The saturation of painted pigments on ancient sculpture and architecture has deteriorated due to time and harmful early modern restoration and cleaning practices. However, the Allen has several remarkable examples of preserved ancient polychromy. Note the eyelashes of the Roman head of Athena and the deep porphyry maroon sculpture of the Eastern Mediterranean head of a youth. Archaeological evidence suggests that ancient artists used color to imitate life, which enhanced the narrative function of sculpture and architecture. Polychromy was integral to the meaning and immediacy of ancient art. The final section is religion, worship, death, and burial. Most of the religious objects in the Allen's collection of ancient art represent polytheistic religions. However, antiquity was also a period in which important monotheistic faiths like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam were developed. Gods were worshipped at large public temples as well as in the home, where small shrines could be set up for personal devotion. Beyond formal worship, religion was incorporated into every aspect of daily life for many ancient peoples. One example is a small bronze decorative bust of Silenus. This would have been used as an ornamental finial on a reclining couch. Silenus is a companion of Bacchus, the god of wine, so this would have been a very fitting companion for wealthy Romans as they relaxed, ate, and drank. Many of the Allen's most well-preserved objects were used in a funerary context. Funerals were important events, often depicted on ceramics, as seen in this gallery, and different methods of burial were practiced, including ash urns and sarcophagi. There are several large examples of sarcophagi on the wall that is opposite this display. Tombs and burial techniques were preserved in varying degrees of ornateness that reflect social class stratification. The quantity of diverse objects from tombs indicates the range of ideas that ancient cultures had about the afterlife. Many of the objects, sarcophagi and architectural fragments in this section of the gallery, were produced in Egypt. We also took this opportunity to move the majority of the ancient Egyptian art closer to the rest of the African art collection, which is mostly 20th century, located in the adjoining ambulatory. The main theme that Emily and I wanted to articulate in the reinstallation of the ancient Mediterranean and Western Asian art at the Allen was the dynamism and diversity of the ancient world. This narrative serves as a through line for much of the collection's thematic text and individual object labels. The traditional arrangement of ancient art in many other museums tends to skew our perceptions of ancient Greece and Rome as homogeneous places. However, we know that people from around the Mediterranean, from North Africa to Rome, Greece, and modern-day Pakistan, interacted regularly and informed each other's artistic practices. Our thematic reinstallation at the Allen brings together works from different cultural groups and time periods into conversation with one another to highlight the vastness and variance of the ancient world alongside points of convergence and shared practices and ideas. The main feature walls of this exhibition, which includes the map and these two architectural fragments, help convey the diversity of the ancient world and explain how it is reflected in the Allen's collection. For example, this sculpture, which once ornamented a pediment of a Greek building, was a popular composition in ancient Greece. However, the origins of a lion attacking a bull motif emanate from ancient Western Asia. This subject has been found on Mesopotamian cylinder seals from around 3000 BC, and this one is from around 13 to 1200 BC. We also chose to highlight this architectural fragment. In the previous display at the Allen, the Coptic or Byzantine Egyptian column capital almost blended in with the historic building's 19th century Greek revival Corinthian capitals. However, this artwork is not modern. This column capital and missing structure were produced during the Byzantine period in Egypt. This period, beginning in the 4th century CE, is named for Emperor Constantine's movement of the imperial capital from Rome to Byzantium, which is modern-day Istanbul. The political reach of the Byzantine Empire was vast, encompassing parts of Africa, Asia, and Europe. Egypt, with the artwork, where this artwork was produced, was a leading producer of grain during the Roman and Byzantine empires, making it one of the wealthiest, most economically vital, and most important centers of learning in antiquity. During the reinstallation, Emily and I also took this opportunity to rethink the name of the Allen's ancient ambulatory, specifically thinking of alternatives to the outdated term ancient Near East. We researched and looked at other museums that are grappling with similar issues. Many museums still refer to the ancient civilizations of Western Asia, like Mesopotamia, Sumer, Akkad, and Assyria, as the Near East, which then replaced an older and less precise term, the Orient. At different times, terms like Near East, Middle East, and the Orient have been interchangeably used to describe areas including North Africa, modern-day Sudan, Syria, Jordan, Turkey, Iraq, and Iran. However, the usage of these terms is bound up in the historiography of Western Asian archaeology, which is deeply intertwined with the history of colonialism. Moreover, the directional descriptors near and middle project residues of colonial mentalities, and that they noted the proximity of these peripheral countries in relation to an imagined center, in this case, the West, Europe, and America.
We'd next like to highlight a handful of artworks that are newly on view or have been freshly reinterpreted. We'll start with this jug in the form of a human head with African features. Likely used for dining, head-shaped vessels like this are well known and preserve a range of hairstyles and facial features. This particular type doesn't have abundant comparanda, but it's a work that we plan to research further. These objects have historically been talked about in terms of racial difference between Black Africans and others. In recent years, however, there's been a great deal of work on conceptions of race in antiquity. While differences in skin color were recognized, they were not a determinant of social standing, and indeed, modern conceptions of race don't really seem to apply to the ancient world. We wanted to gesture to these important conversations by bringing out this artwork and giving it a label. Related is the new wall text on polychromy. Ancient sculpture, like the torso and these heads, was not originally white and did not mark whiteness as a dominant feature of ancient Greece and Rome. Too often, these sculptures are co-opted by white supremacists, so it's important that we tackle this issue. Another work we brought out from storage is this fragment of a relief sculpture from the Persian Empire. This decorated the Apadana, a massive reception hall in the palace complex at the capital city of Persepolis. Well documented in excavations by the University of Chicago, this image of a palace guard and many others like it would have lined the steps up to a hall, in a way escorting visitors. The rest of the complex has a similarly detailed artistic program. Another famous section shows the many different cultures of the empire, all in specific dress, bringing offerings for the New Year or Nowruz festival. This sculpture, which is placed near Egyptian and some Roman reliefs, illustrates a mode of representation from Western Asia. We also made some swaps of the set of coins that was on display. The previous selection had some real standouts, but as Marlise and I explored the collection in storage, we noticed some great coins that date to the 3rd and early 4th century CE that would expand the chronology of coins on view. And the coin all the way on your right there is one of these later coins with this really cool personification of Africa. We also found several coins, these are the two on the left, decorated with images of imperial women, and we wanted to highlight these women whose names we know. So Lucilla, the daughter of Marcus Aurelius, and Julia Domna, a very powerful 3rd century empress. Luckily, many of these coins are also very legible, and Andre built us a great new mount that angles them up a little bit higher so that they're easier to see. Already on display, but ripe for reinterpretation, is a set of 11 small Egyptian objects from the site of Saqqara. These were likely small votive offerings left at the massive complex of tombs and temples called the Sacred Animal Necropolis. The site was home to a vast network of tombs, catacombs, and shrines, home to potentially hundreds of thousands of animal mummies. Kind of a wild place. The site was excavated beginning in the 1960s by the Egypt Exploration Society, a British organization that the Allen donated some money to. At the time, the EES and the Egyptian government divided fines from the excavations in a system called partage, where the excavating organization and the host country each kept half the fines. The EES then gifted some of its portion to its donors, which is how this set of 11 objects from the 1970 to 1972 excavations ended up here. Displayed all together and with a new label, these works help illustrate not only Egyptian religious practice, but also the history of archaeology. We did also update some titles and some dates. This is one example, previously titled just Dwarf. This object from Saqqara we've renamed to an amulet of Ptaikos, and this is the name of the protective deity that it represents. 2 objects that have been on view in the ancient ambulatory but are newly mounted and presented to the public are the Cypriot and Egyptian necklaces that you can kind of see just over my head and on the opposite side of the top of the case. And this, the Etruscan pre-Roman Italian mirror down at the bottom right. We worked with Larry Sisson and his team at Sisson Fine Art Services to create new mounts to help show them off a little bit better. The Cypriot necklace, which you saw earlier, is a stunning piece of gold working, and its previous mount was pretty effective. But Emily Blazer on Larry's team is a real expert at mounting necklaces in the way that they would have laid on someone's neck. The Etruscan mirror had been mounted up against the back wall of the case with the decorative side facing out, which meant that you couldn't see the really highly polished reflective opposite side. The new mount, which is expertly designed, shows off both sides and also doesn't hide the really ornate handle. So in both cases, it becomes, we hope, more clear how someone would have actually used and interacted with these objects. Kevin Greenwood, our curator of art from Asia, was also generous enough to lend us 2 objects from his collection. One is on the left, the 9th or 10th century CE Persian bowl with a Kufic inscription. We, of course, have plenty of objects related to polytheistic religions of many ancient cultures. And we do also have a couple of works of early Christianity. Though the Kufic bowl is a little bit later than most of the collection, so it's a little bit of a stretch, we like the idea of being able to highlight another monotheistic religion, in this case, Islam. The second object that Kevin lent us on the right is a stone panel that once decorated the stairway of a Buddhist monument in modern-day Pakistan. Dating to the 1st century CE, this object depicts a triton, human sea creature hybrid from Greek and Roman mythology. The work is a really stellar example of the cultural interaction that we wanted to highlight in the new gallery. The Gandhara region, where this object is from, was a really important crossroads of trade and travel and had connections to Greece dating back to the 4th century BCE in the period of Alexander the Great's conquests. So while the gallery has only been installed for less than a full semester, we've already been able to use it in some overlooked college classes. Students in a Greek 101 class looked at the kylix and tried to puzzle out its inscriptions. Probably our most spectacular ceramic. We moved the kylix in between the columns so that it's now visible all the way around and more centrally located. This made it easier for students to see the letters on both the outer sides of the kylix and on the inside, and in general makes the visual program more legible. Students in a creative writing class visited to learn about interesting stories in the museum's collection for some poem inspiration. And in previous semesters, I had highlighted the Saqqara group by pointing out 1 or 2 of the objects, but showing them all together raised some really great questions among the students about things like the different sizes, different materials, and the different animals represented. Finally, a class on medical anthropology visited to consider representations of the body in different periods and different cultures. And one stop was the torso of Pothos. Now displayed next to the 3 sculptural heads, some students reported finding it easier to imagine the rest of the torso and make sense of its message.
Looking forward to the future display of ancient art at the Allen Memorial Art Museum, it is my goal that things should not remain static. Although this is a permanent exhibition space, no display should remain unchanged for 13 years. To be the greatest value to Oberlin College and the community, engaging with his collection regularly to reflect new research in the field and respond to current issues is vital. Emily and I are developing ways to continue engaging with his collection, from object rotations to special focus exhibitions, new research, and efforts to make the collection more accessible. Thank you.